Today's episode is brought to you by SVS. Based in Youngstown, Ohio, SVS delivers thrilling and immersive audio experiences from their highly acclaimed speakers, subwoofers, cables, wireless audio gear, and more. SVS is leading a sound revolution by offering expert support, generous owner benefits, and a world-class performance that far exceeds the price. Learn more at SVSOUNDdotCOM. That's S as in speaker, V as in volume, sound.com. Today's episode is also sponsored by SCHIIT Audio. SCHIIT Audio designs and builds audio components in California and Texas. Based in Valencia and Corpus Christi, their wide line of amps, DACs, and audio accessories fit any budget, starting at $49. For a full rundown of all their products, visit SCHIIT.com or stop by their retail store in Old Newhall, just north of Los Angeles. That's SCHIIT.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Musical Surroundings. For over 30 years, Musical Surroundings has distributed high-performance analog playback equipment to vinyl enthusiasts and music lovers throughout the United States. Based in Oakland, California, Musical Surroundings represents world-class brands like Clear Audio, Hanna, DS Audio, and their own line of Musical Surroundings phono preamplifiers. To learn more about the exceptional turntables, cartridges, and analog accessories they offer, visit musicalsurroundings.com. That's musicalsurroundings.com. Hello, friends and colleagues, listeners, and aficionados of high fidelity. You're listening to the occasional podcast year-end wrap-up, Season 6, Episode 8. And we are just kind of collecting things together. Joining me this episode is our friend, PartTimeAudiophile Productions, Marc Phillips. How are you today, my friend?
Doing well. So year-end, it's so much we've done this season, this closing season. I'm exhausted. Let's just say I'm exhausted. But it's a good kind of exhaustion.
Let me just throw this out there. Marc is a machine when it comes to reviews. A machine.
How
many reviews do you think you did in total this year? Do you know?
Eric looked this up and gave it to me, and it's almost embarrassing, but we have to remember it was COVID and I didn't go anywhere, so I was probably able to do twice as much as usual. But I did 37 reviews in the calendar year 2021. To that
I feel like that is more experience with high-end gear than... How many people do you think even have listened to that much different gear and thought about it?
Yeah, I know. I've been lucky enough for the past few years that I've had a plethora of gear constantly flowing in and out of my life, but this year was pretty intense at times, and I still tried to really get down there and find the strengths of every single thing I tested. I'm looking back on this year, and there was just a ton of great stuff that I listened to, just a ton of great gear, great recordings. So, I'm tired, but, it's a good kind of tired.
Today's show is also sponsored by Wharfedale. For nearly 90 years, Wharfedale has built loudspeakers for music lovers all over the world. With a warm and natural sound signature, their inherently high-fidelity sonic retrieval simply makes you want to listen to your music for longer. Visit WHARFEDALEUSA.com to discover the high-value Diamond 12 series, the best-selling Linton Heritage, and the no-holds-barred Elysian. That's WHARFEDALEUSA.com. So, if you guys haven't figured out by now, this episode is about the best of. So, we're going the best of Season 6 at the year end here. And we have a lot of material. We have a couple of our good friends from PartTimeAudiophile chiming in. We have Mohammed Samji and Grover Neville contributing their thoughts for their best of for Season 6 as well. And we'll get to that in just a second. But before we dive into all that fun best of, and I know you guys want to know, I just want to kind of let you know, Mark and I have been very busy this year working and exploring all the nuances of a lot of different arenas. But I think a couple of the favorites, and these have been very popular for us this season, are the concept of British hi-fi, what that means, what are the tent poles for British hi-fi. And in that exploration, we started out with the podcast aptly titled, What is British Hi-Fi? But one of our more popular ones from this season has been the history and continuing legacy of the LS35A loudspeaker. And that kind of dives a little bit more into that very specific tent pole that we talked about earlier for British hi-fi, along with, obviously the quads and these type of other things. But this one, very popular speaker, very popular podcast. So I encourage you guys, if you're looking for a little more of me and Mark talking about crazy stuff, to check that out. Check out What is British Hi-Fi. In What is British Hi-Fi, we actually got the opportunity to talk to a bunch of people who I would consider to be, really well versed on the subject. And we got some people from Britain and the UK, some personalities that we love very much, to help kind of explain that, flush that out. But even so, we keep also coming back to, and Mark, jump in anytime you want here, but they also, the LS35A is a two-way speaker. And we talk about, I think this is a really eloquent podcast that we did that's about the difference between two ways and three ways and how it can be done right and how it can be done really good and what is kind of the pros and cons of each. So that's a really great one to check out as well.
And I'm going to call 2021 unofficially the year of the LS35A, because we did get into it, and I reviewed the MoFi edition. It was one of the highlights of the year. And even that review that I did was one of our most popular reviews all year. So people still want to know about the LS35A. They're hearing about these current versions and just how amazing they are, even, by contemporary standards. They are just exquisite. And it kind of got me into the whole, back into the British hi-fi stuff. So I'm getting stuff from Harbeth and Name, and working on Graham Audio right now, which has me very excited because I've been after them for years. And it's just like I'm traveling back in time as an audiophile 20 years, but I was having a lot of fun 20 years ago. So this has been fantastic.
And drum roll, right? Drum roll. The number one podcast from this season, actually, and I find this one very interesting, is our guide to tube amplifiers. So there's a lot of hunger out there for a little more education on tube amplifiers. Maybe we'll revisit that in an upcoming season. But people are very interested in how tube amplifiers are really kind of thought out, the topologies and these type of things. And it's definitely one of those arenas that needs a lot more exploration and explaining for people, because it's a little bit complicated compared to just a solid state media player, I would say.
It was that kind of a year where I had a lot of tube gear in, and I had the LS35As, and I had a lot of different stuff, and it was just, I could be happy with any of this. It all works so well together. It's just the human side of high-end audio, pretty much.
I like that. I like that. So, getting to it, our friend Mohammed from PartTimeAudiophile, he gave us his thoughts for his best of season 6. And let's kick it over to Mo right now.
Okay, let's start with best floor standing speakers, Wilson Audio Alex V. I was so inspired when I had the opportunity a few years ago to listen to the Wilson Wham Master Chronosonic down in David's listening room. It was really special. Since then, the crew at Wilson seems to be trying to bring a lot of that DNA, as well as a bunch of new innovations with some new materials, a new tweeter that has this cool 3D printed enclosure, and these new fancy feet that all seem to really elevate performance. All of these new elements and kind of engineering feats are all available in the new Alex V, and we currently have it on review. I have to say that by a long margin, it's the best loudspeaker I've experienced in my room. And if I try to summarize that in a couple of elements, it comes down to two things. First, I've never experienced a speaker that is so dead quiet. And that combination with its ability to reproduce details and micro details, as well as dynamics, is just darn scary. You know, it's easy to build a loudspeaker that plays loud, but this thing can play loud and you can hear all of this detail. And when you're playing the really soft passages, man, things are just not lost. And for me, for someone who likes to play so damn loud, I feel like I'm turning down the volume with these speakers because I'm loving it. All this is just taking me back to the moment when the music was just recorded. Anyways, I'm in love, and you can't pry these speakers away from me. Definitely the best floor stander by a wide margin. Next, let's talk about cables. Starting with power cable, hands down, the best are the AudioQuest Storm series. Garth Powell, their director of engineering, seems to really have this power thing figured out, and I just love his engineering curiosity. In my rig, I have slowly replaced everything with the AudioQuest Storm series Dragon level cables, and I've pretty much never looked back. On interconnect cables, I really, really love Cardis Clear, and also the similarly priced AudioQuest Fire Series interconnects. Both of those kind of do what you expect. They disappear, and most importantly, don't seem like they're doing any harm to the signal path, and that's all I can ask for in an interconnect, is just to get the hell out of the way. But if you want the best, I still haven't found anything that has displaced my longtime transparent cables. Currently, I have found, for me, the best of the best are the transparent Opus Generation 6 interconnects that recently got an update. For me, it's they just do the things that I love. They are extremely quiet, incredibly resolving of detail, and when you take them out, you feel like the glass that you're looking through almost got a little dirty, and they're just super dynamic. I don't know what voodoo they're doing in that passive network, but it's definitely pleasing to my ears and in my room, and every time I switch them out, I always go back to them. On headphones. On the best headphones, I still always go back to my trusty, beautiful Focal Utopia. They're my go-to for any recording, mixing, or production work. They're just super accurate. I could wear them all day. But what I found is to make them sing, you really need to use an external phono preamp. Just plugging them into my Mac is okay. And I found that the best experience with them seems to be using the Focal Utopia with the corresponding Focal Archie headphone preamp. And currently I'm using that with a transparent Ultra headphone cable. And that seems to be the winning combination. On best phono preamplifier, it's the Dan D'Agostino Momentum Phono. Friends know how much I enjoy listening to my favorite albums. There isn't anything better as, pulling out the album, dropping it down, letting it spin a few times and getting off the dust, and then dropping the needle and actually listening to an entire side. And I've been blessed with a really great setup, and I really didn't think I could elevate my analog reproduction, but the D'Agostino Momentum Phono proved me wrong. Its ability to dig deep into those grooves, elevate the micro details and dynamics, and recreate music is just breathtaking. And it's just darn quiet, which is super important with my phono playback, especially since I'm using really low output MC cartridges. I purchased the review sample instantly after completing the review, which you should check out. On best preamplifier, for me, it's the Dan D'Agostino Momentum HD preamplifier. It's no secret how much I love the Dan D'Agostino Momentum Phono preamplifier and all of the engineering that went into it. and I got to spend a lot of time learning about it when I visited the D'Agostino factory. So when D'Agostino recently updated their corresponding momentum preamplifier, Dan took a lot of the learnings he had done from the phono preamp and also from the development of their crazy, relentless amplifier, which is just crazy but just amazing. And I wish I could buy one, but it's just too darn large and too darn expensive, but it's pretty fantastic. Anyways, he took all the learnings from those and he put them into the new updated Momentum HD preamplifier. And what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is the corresponding combo of the Momentum Phono plus the updated Momentum HD preamplifier. It just sings. It brings forward pitch black backgrounds that are just filled with music, and I can't ask for more than that. To me, it's currently the combo that you got to beat, in my humble opinion. On best cartridge, for me, it's the Lyra Atlas Lambda SL, and also the corresponding Lyra Atlas Lambda Mono cartridges. You know, I've been a longtime fan of the Lyra line. The Lyra Atlas and various wood body cartridges have been my reference for a long time, and I seemed to, over the years, always like to go back to the Atlas. And what I loved about it was its accuracy, its speed, and its detail. But you could say that I was just yearning for just a little bit more romance that I had from some of my favorite wood body cartridges. What happened this year is that new Lyra Atlas Lambda SL seems to have been able to solve this equation. Sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied this morning. It now provides all the things I loved without being sterile and provides just that little bit of romance that I was yearning for. And I had the Lyra Atlas SL for a few months, and I loved it so much. I actually went and purchased the matching Lyra Atlas Lambda Mono, and I have that running on my second 12-inch arm on an AMG Forte turntable that is just blowing my mind right now. On best accessories, it's the Wilson Audio pedestal. It's no secret that what your equipment rests on has a huge impact on its performance. I've tried many platforms and many different feet over the years, and what I've found is that the isolation platform of choice for me is the HRS M3X. But I continue to experiment with various feet and other fancy devices to see if I can further elevate the performance of that isolation base. And what I found is that as I've tried different feet, many of them seem to hurt some areas, but a lot of them actually make other things sound worse. But I think we have a winner. I'm absolutely in love with the Wilson Audio pedestal feet. They have not only elevated the performance of my HRS isolation bases, but what's different is you can actually use the Wilson Audio pedestals anywhere. That's allowed me to elevate portions of my system where I didn't have an isolation base. For example, I have a few transformers that are sitting on the floor that probably take a beating from my loudspeakers, and putting the pedestals below them has been, not subtle in terms of the improvement. I'm currently up to a crazy number of 17 Wilson Audio pedestals in my system, and I don't plan on removing any of them. Definitely a accessory I recommend you borrow from the dealer and experiment with the placement. And if you want to learn more, there's a bunch of things that I learned you can see in the review.
Okay, Mark, what do you think? You heard? What's your initial reaction to Mo's kind of recommendations?
Well, Mo is one of our what we call big system guys. We have 3 big system guys right now. We have Mo, we have Richard Mack, and we have but I was going to say it for the first time on the air. Panagiotas Caravitas. I think I got that close. So, anyways, Panagiotas Caravitas. Yeah. So I practice it many times. So anyways, but there are big system guys. And so Mo is a big system guy. So he's the kind of guy who goes out and buys what he really wants. And he's got a great ear. Most of that stuff is in a system right now. That's the highest compliment I can imagine for a manufacturer, is that Mo bought it from you and he loves it. It's been a long time since I've heard Big Wilsons, and I wouldn't mind spending some more time with them.
All right. Well, now we have one of our LA guys, Grover Neville, with his thoughts and his picks for the year. So let's kick it over to Grover real quick.
Hey everyone, Grover Neville here, and I just wanted to talk about my top picks from 2021. I'll start off first with the Zion monoblock amplifiers from Amps & Sound. These were probably one of my absolute highlights for the year. They were pretty much the best sounding amplifiers that I had in my system, or have ever had in my system. If you're looking for a single-ended amplifier that has tons of current, amazing bass, these are pretty much it. For me, I could have lived happily with these amplifiers forever, and I was quite sad to see them go. Another standout for me was the Focal Conta speakers. These speakers from Focal are not super new, but they do everything really well. And they just, for the price, seem like a really solid buy. You're getting great support and service from Focal. You're getting amazing looks. Overall, they just feel like a really serious $10,000 speaker. They seem to have everything that I would think a speaker at this price range has. And they were one of the few speakers this year that I was really excited about. 2 other highlights would probably be the Acora SRBs, which I currently have in and am working on some thoughts on. These are pretty much colorless. I mean, I put them into my studio system and I immediately heard the colorations of the ATC monitors that they replaced, which is pretty amazing since the ATCs are quite neutral and uncolored generally. These things are super fast. They have an almost electrostatic like mid-range. The treble's incredibly detailed, but never harsh. The bass is just astounding. I mean, these are pretty much the best speakers in the stand mount category that I can think of. And I've heard the SRC2s from Dave McNair, and I have to say Dave's SRC2s just in his mastering rig just sound unbelievable. They're pretty much the best speakers I've ever heard. I mean, I've heard things that are different, but I really haven't heard anything that's better. So the Acoras are pricey, but they play with the absolute best audio systems I've ever heard. Another really great speaker that I heard this year was the Sonus Faber Olympica Nova 2s. These have a wonderful tuning. It's kind of a downward tilted slope. If you can imagine something that resembles a B&K curve. I thought they were fantastically well tuned. Another kind of like the Focal Conta great speaker with a modern tuning for the brand. Departs a little bit from maybe what you traditionally think of, but I really enjoyed my time with them. I thought they were also exceptional. The name Unity Nova was an integrated all-in-one that I really loved. Probably my favorite piece of amplification, source gear, etc. after the Zion Monos. This one, not necessarily because the sound was like absolutely unreal, although it did sound very good, but just because the functionality was so great for the price point. You could use the remote control, you could use the app, you could use Google Chromecast. You could pretty much use whatever you wanted for controlling the unit. It also had a DAC built in. It had preamp and amplifier functionality, which could be used both separately as well as the integrated. Pretty much you could do anything with it you wanted to other than phono, and obviously adding a phono stage is not terribly difficult. This was just the most functional unit I thought I could. This was just the most functional unit I had this year. So that was a really special unit. I thought that sounded excellent and offered a lot for the price point. Those were my top picks of 2021. Honorable mention also goes out to Honorable mention also goes out to the Alnic A2000 anniversary amplifier, 25th anniversary. That amplifier was, I think, for many people, a highlight. I know Marc Phillips also had one in for review. And it just sounds totally clean, about as colorless as I've heard a tube amp sound, super neutral, lots of power. It really is like a solid state amplifier on steroids with just a little bit of that extra imaging, layering, depth to it. But it has all the great stuff that you love about solid state amplifiers without sacrificing any of that to get some of those cool qualities that tubes have. Those are pretty much my choices for 2021, and I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody else has as theirs.
All right. Mark, what do you think?
Well, first of all, it's kind of fun because I was in LA for the first time in a couple of years, just 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and got to hang out with both Grover and Brian Hunter. This is the LA crew. And so I just wanted to say that we had a great time together and went to Brent's Deli, which is one of my favorite LA spots. It's the best sandwich in the world. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I want to talk about Grover are these. I wanted to discuss these amps and sound amplifiers, the monoblocks that he loved so much. And it was really weird because when we edited it and we formatted it, we put it into the magazine, published it, everything, I felt like Grover had such good equipment lately that I didn't know this one stood out as much as it did for him. I really kind of looked back, and once it was published, I said, Grover really loved this. I kind of went back and reread it, and now I want to hear him because he was astonished. And the thing about Grover is he reluctantly hands out awards. We really had to, say, hey, you want to give this one an award? No, I don't give awards. He wanted the ones that he gave to be really special. But this one is, he talks about it all the time. I think, it's another thing. I would like to hear this stuff. It's just amazing. I hear everything. I don't have time to hear everything, but I kind of want to hear these.
All right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and go into my picks for this year, okay, guys?
All right.
So I had there's a lot of stuff going on this year, along with the podcast. I didn't have as much gear through the lab here as much as I would like to, but I had a couple of really great pieces. So I'm going to start out, though, in the personal audio sector. So I had a chance, and I would just like to say my favorite closed-back headphone of the year is the Dan Clark Audio Stealth. We also had him on the show. You can check it out. He did some stuff with metamaterials on this, and it's closed-back. He's always kind of been going for this open sound in a closed-back. I feel like it's always been one of his goals to create the most open-sounding closed-back, like an open headphone, but it's actually closed, so you get the isolation. And this one, I think, inches even closer to that goal. Of course, it's a lot more expensive than your usual headphone. It is his new flagship closed-back. However, he put a lot of effort into it, and it sounds just unique in the landscape of all this other stuff. So, time well spent. Great closed-back headphone. In terms of the open-back headphone that I heard that I like the most, actually, I was able to get the LCD 5-in, so that's Audazy's newest headphone. Open-back, flagship. The sound aside, I have to say one of the bigger improvements was that it is much lighter on the head. I've never personally had an issue with the weight of the LCD4. It is heavy. It is way up there. I'm probably one of the more heavier headphones I've ever had on my noggin, but it never really bothered me, the weight thing. But it does bother some people. I know that. They have said that it hurts their necks. So this one, I don't know. I think it's almost half the weight, something like that. But it is much easier on the head. Still feels quality, polished, a refinement, and a step forward for them. They're always doing innovative things. So, again, it's $4,500, so it is quite a pricey kind of little proposition there, but an excellent sounding headphone that brings out the best, really, of all the quality of a planar magnetic headphone has. Great bass slam, really good treble, and just a nice, solid mid-range. So those are my two picks in the personal audio headphone space. Now, I also wanted to give out a major shout out to one of my favorite kind of compact eye lookers. This is like a desktop cube, right? So if you want to do a conversation starter, the Woo Audio WA7 Fireflies entered its third generation this year, and I got a chance to review it. And it sits on the top. The top half is all glass. It's very polished looking. It looks modern and cool, but with that hint of vintage with the tubes. And the sound, for my taste, I always felt like Woo does a really good job of giving you good, clean sound through the analog, through the tube stage. So it's not overly lush. It's not, smushy in the lows. He strikes a really solid balance with the tube technology in the headphone space. And so the Cube, the new gen, it has a DAC built in. It's an all-in-one thing. It used to come with a separate power supply. They brought it all into a single box. It's a looker. It's a sounder. Is that an expression, Mark? A sounder? I think we should make it one.
No. It was a movie in the 70s. It was a dog movie, but a really good one, though. But no, sounder, I don't think.
So
how about soundier? Soundier. I like that. Soundier. It's soundier. I'm going to put that in one of my reviews. I'm going to say it was soundier than before. And let's see how many angry comments I get on that one.
Probably. Oh my gosh! Don't dare spell a single word wrong. How dare you? So the Woo Audio W7A Fireflies would be my pick for headphone amplifier of the year. Now, my total product of the year is a loudspeaker I got in that just simply blew me away. It's like a second generation of an earlier pick that I really like. But the QLN Prestige 1 is the newest version because the Prestige line has always been the top of the line one. They brought it down to a two-way stand mount speaker, but they changed it. So I actually had the Signature 3, which is the one it's replacing, at the same time in here. And I got to tell you, it was an ear opener. Whoa! Using all the kinds of weird metaphors today. But this is a refinement. It is tighter across the spectrum, tighter in the bass, tighter in the highs, tighter all over. And as I said before, not to beat a dead horse, this speaker to me sounds like a bookshelf that is really acting like a floor stander. I think the coverage is great. It pressurizes the room great. And it has not a super duper in your face sound in my opinion, but like a very spacious, airy, and natural sound. It's not just like right in your ear, It's like It fills the room in a way that makes it seem like you're listening to some, I don't want to go cliche again, but you're listening to something right there. That's how the presentation feels to me. So the QLN Prestige 1 loudspeaker, that is my pick for product of the year. Mark, what do you think? Am I full of shit?
No, you're not. I have to completely agree with you. I would have mentioned it too. So I'll say this about the QLN Prestige 1, is that it's the single thing that I came closest to actually saying I want to buy this. Of all the speakers that I listen to, and I think a lot of it has to do with the combination of it's affordable, it isn't crazy priced, and the performance that you get for that money. And I can't think of anything that beats it in that term. I just kept scratching my head. And the only reason perhaps why I didn't decide to go ahead and get them is that there is a new QLN signature monitor on its way, supposedly, and I'm going to get a chance at that. So that's going to be even higher. Maybe that's the thing for me. But who knows? But QLN is just so fantastic. So I'll second you on the QLN. But then I put them on the Acora Acoustics SR-SG stands, and this was one of my favorite products of the year, merely because every speaker that I put on there instantly improved. So when I talk about all the great sound that I got from two-way monitors in my room, they were atop these granite stands that weigh more, they're over 100 pounds each. But they just instantly made this sound incredible. And you were talking about the QLN sound start sounding like, a floor standing speaker. That's what happened to every speaker that I set on top of the Acoras. It was just amazing. So I have to talk about the Acoras. But if you really want to know what could have copped out on this and just said, if you want to read my personal favorites, we have the year-end awards we just did at PTA. So we have, the best value. We have reviewer's choice, editor's choice, then best value of the year, and then product of the year. And so product of the year, I chose the Sonos Faber Maxima Amateur, which
gorgeous speaker. Visually stunning.
It is. It was the one that was like, if I had commissioned somebody to build me a speaker, and I just like, oversaw it for years and made them keep changing things, because it's just on so many levels, it was just a satisfying loudspeaker. And at first, I got I got a little flack for that, because we got 2 years in a row that I pick. The product of the year is 2 speakers that I heard and reviewed, and I love them both. So last year was the Wimberg EMEA, might be the finest two-way monitor I've ever heard, but the Sonus Faber Maxima Amateur is a floor-standing two-way speaker that's made from a solid wood enclosure. And for me, it was, visually, it's absolutely gorgeous, but the sound was amazing, and it liked every single amplifier it was attached to. So that was the product of the year. And then Falcon Acoustics LS35A, the MoFi edition.
Woo-hoo. I second that one too. Another great speaker.
It just completely shook up my world this year and asked me what I really needed to be happy. So we're working on a couple things. I'd love to get a pair of the gold badge. One of the seeds that I've been kind of sowing over the year was I would love to get the gold badge LS35A from Falcon Acoustics and get a core to make me some custom stands for them to put them on. And I think that might be something that I could just, disappear,
Mark's gone. We haven't seen him.
I never thought that would be something that would affect me so much, but the MoFi did, absolutely. And then the only last thing is the Zix. The Zix Ultimate Airy. I almost forgot about it because I got it earlier in the year, almost at the beginning of the year, and then all of a sudden I had a deluge of cartridges and phono, and it kind of got lost, but it was the one that I had actually decided I'm going to buy this. I love this. I don't want to lessen its impact because, like I said, I'm going to buy this thing. That has to be mentioned too, and that all happened in 2021. It was an extremely memorable year in terms of the stuff that I got to listen to. Just a great year.
So, Mark, you also do a vinyl review column called the Vinyl Anachronist.
Anachronist, yes.
Anachronist.
Vinyl anachronist, a word that I made up, and it was goofy, and I never really thought I'd still be using it, but, I think somebody just gave me crap about it, and I go, after 24 years, now you're going to complain about the word? So, I've been doing it for 24 years.
Do you have a pick for your favorite album that you listen to, your favorite LP?
Okay, my favorite LP this year, I did do that because for the other side, for Perfect Sound Forever, I do music reviews, and I do music reviews, of course, for PartTimeAudiophile. But the one was probably Hilary Hahn, and it's called Paris, and it's her doing Prokofiev's First Violin Concerto, which is one of my favorite musical pieces. But it's Deutsche Grammophon. It was a $35 double LP set, and just everything about it was astonishing. It was one of my favorite pieces of music, and her performance is amazing, and the sound quality is amazing. And that was, other than that, the big one that I was really impressed with this year was Le Grand Jazz, but that was, that's been out for a couple of years. But the Hilary Hahn's was quite special. And I like to see more of that, more modern classical music LP releases like that, where they really care about the pressing, and they don't charge, a bunch of money for it. So it's a major record label, I almost said Deutsche Grungephone. Is that what they used to call it? It's not grungy at all. This is a real sharp recording and beautifully performed. So that was probably my pick. I've done other top 10 of the year picks, and that was what I had picked.
I actually got to dive into some vinyl this year as well, but I am at the behest of my wife on a lot of the picks because she loves the vinyl. And she bought a ton of vinyl. So unfortunately, most of my picks or most of my listens this year on vinyl would not align with traditional audiophile tastes. However, I will say that I give a shout out for sure to the Tom Petty, Wildflowers, and all the rest. He sadly passed a little while back, and the family re-released the Wildflowers album, which I consider to be one of his best, if not the best, road trip album ever written. So like back to back, that thing makes me feel like I see the dotted line and I'm driving down the road and there's a mountain, there's something in the background. I love that. I love that album. It sounded pretty good. But unfortunately, I have to comment, the pressing she bought for the Taylor Swift new album. Taylor Swift came out with an album this pandemic, and Folklore was the first release, and Evermore is the second, right?
Okay.
So she bought a pressing of Folklore, and it sounded not good. And this is the first time I'm sitting there listening to an album like something is really wrong here. And I think we had mentioned this on another podcast too. There was this like ridiculous audiophile meme that went around how a bunch of people, the next one that was released was Red, and it was in, the faster speed. And everybody was like, why is a man singing on this album? Do you remember that, Mark?
Yeah, I did. I mean, but I don't know. But, it was really funny because first it was a couple years ago, it was Lana Del Rey. I said, oh my God, I really like her. And I think this year I kind of did for Taylor Swift.
It's been a year for vinyl. It's been a year to sit at home and listen and have the time with the record and have time with friends if they're,
Well, look at the Adele thing. So I'm going to probably be writing about this soon. But she's got her new album, 30, that came out. I'm in Walmart, just middle of nowhere. And they have a huge end cap of Adele 30 vinyl. And I just looked at it. It was like, beckoning to me like, the heavens parted and everything. I couldn't believe that Walmart had a huge vinyl end cap of Adele's 30. And Michael Fremer, I was just at the gala a couple weeks ago, and Michael Fremer said that they may have ordered like 500,000 copies, LP copies for this. And it was like 500,000 copies, initial pressing. And so that's amazing. That's amazing this day and age. I almost want to buy it just to, Adele is like, I still haven't come around to Adele yet, but, anything's possible. I like Taylor Swift.
There's a giant record store here in Los Angeles. It's been a mainstay. It's called Amoeba Records. There's a couple of them, but the one here in LA has been around.
Right.
And that's where we got the album. And there was like a crate of this album. And as I sat there, I saw young woman after young woman come in there, pick it up, and go. I think they sold like 7 copies while I was standing there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like incredible, the volume of this album they put out. And I think it's great. I think everybody should listen to vinyl. I'm excited that there's this revolution of young women involved in vinyl. And it's wonderful to get everybody involved. And the other thing we did, that I may have said this in another podcast, but I think it bears repeating, is that we went out on Record Store Day. Everybody, check out Record Store Day. Support your local record shops. We want them. They're cool. They're fun. They help support the business. We went out and got the Dee Gees, which is Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters covering the Bee Gees. And immediately I got home and I was like, this was kind of hard to get. It was only pressed for that specific event. And I get home and I just kind of was like going online for eBay. And within a couple of days, that thing shot up to $250, dude.
Oh, no.
Within like 3 days, it was $250 on eBay. I was shocked. So, yeah, very interesting year for vinyl. It continues to grow. Unfortunately, I will say this. There was a record store up in Newhall, which is to the north of here, went out of business. Voodoo Records. I was up there this week, no longer. So, rest in peace, Voodoo Records. You were fun. Tiny little shop, but there are many that survived in Los Angeles. But I'm just saying, you support your record shop if you can. I mean, you can buy it all on Amazon, but
the people in Santa Clarita should be ashamed of themselves for not keeping this place in business. Come on, guys! Every town should have a record store in it. So, I mean, I'm up here in Portland. We have Music Millennium, and like I said, Amoeba. I go to the Amoeba when I get a chance because I'm in the Bay Area more than I'm in LA these days. But I go to the one in Berkeley, and the one in LA is super cool. They're almost identical, but the Berkeley one just has that whole Berkeley vibe around it, all that grunge and dirt, and it's pretty cool to go to. So, but Amoeba's
I've been to that one
favorites.
too. Actually, that was my first. I went to that one first before LA. It is a heck of a store.
Yeah, it is. Both of them are, and so I was a guy who grew up with Tower Records, and I really wish there was still a Tower Records. But Amoeba is fantastic.
Wow, yeah, Tower was a hallmark of my youth as well, but it has been quite
Tower on Sunset Boulevard. We used to go have fun in Hollywood, and we'd go up there, and I used to see all sorts of famous people shopping for vinyl in Tower Records on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. So yeah, just I miss those days. And there's that movie out right now called Licorice Pizza, Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Yeah. Oh my God. Well, you know, my local record store was Licorice Pizza, and then they went out of business. They were bought by Sam Goody or Sam Asher, one of those clowns. Yeah, a movie called Licorice Pizza. I immediately looked up, and it's about, you know, it's like Boogie Nights was about the porn industry in the 70s in the San Fernando Valley. This one is about working at record stores in the 70s, which is totally the way I grew up, was in record stores in the 70s. And Licorice Pizza. So it opens, I kind of feel like I'm going to do a commercial. Opens Christmas Day, but it's opening soon. I want to watch it. It's just, I know it's going to be great. Reviews are
also
great.
Features one of the girls from Haim as the actress, I believe.
Yes, that is true. That is true. So these are largely, the two leads are unknowns. It's their first movie. So, and supposedly they're fantastic.
But you know, they're in the Valley here. They film all their videos in the Valley. So it's like heritage.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, that'll take me back.
All right. Mark, what else you got? Anything you want to say on the...
No, other than the fact I've got lots of stuff coming up for 2022. We are not slowing down. We're speeding up. We had a better 2021 at Part-Time Audiophile than 2020, which was amazing considering there was absolutely the trade shows weren't happening yet. And so we're doing better than ever. We're expanding. We've got new writers coming aboard in the coming months. So it's going to be fun. 2022 is going to be a good year, as long as we stay home and be safe.
And I did want to say a hearty thank you to all of our listeners. This was also the biggest year ever for the Occasional Podcast, the largest audience for the season 6 of any season before, and we're not even done yet. We got a couple episodes left, and I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and your support and all that good stuff. So cheers to that. Cheers to you guys. Cheers to you, Mark.
Happy New Year, Brian.
Happy New Year. The Occasional Podcast is a production of the Part-Time Audiophile Network, which includes PartTimeAudiophile.com, The Occasional Magazine, the PTA Newsletter, and AudioHead.com. You can stay in touch with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The Occasional Podcast is produced and hosted by Brian Hunter, executive produced by Scott Hall at PTA Productions. If you haven't already, please subscribe to The Occasional Podcast on iTunes, Google, Spotify, or wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.